Hey guys, Bike here, and I'm back again with another build guide, but this time it's not for Last Epoch, it's for Diablo 4. So if you've been by my live streams these past couple weeks since Season 4 launched, by the way, if you're interested in live streams, information available in the description down below. I've just been playing a ton of Diablo 4, and I played a druid. We had some fun with druid, and then I went and tried out barbarian, and I told myself, yo, I want to try out this whirlwind dust devils build. I knew it wasn't going to be the greatest, but I wanted to check it out, so I used a build from Maxroll, and I leveled up all the way to 100 on my own, and then at level 100 I just switched everything over to try and get close to the build guide. I ran it. I then changed some things around just to kind of suit, my personal play style as opposed to like what they wanted on there. And I feel like it's been pretty successful. We've pushed I did tier 60 in the pit. I've cleared really high nightmare dungeons. This build is amazing at farming, and I think it's a lot of fun. Is it going to be the best pit pusher build? No, it's not. I could already confirm that. It's not. But in terms of just fun and speed farming, this build is really good. So let's go ahead, jump into the game, and check it out. But before we do that, I want to do my due diligence and say there are build guides in the description. There's one to Maxroll, right, where I got the original build guide, and then there's one that build guide planners, and then there's one to a planner that I put together with what I currently have. If you really want to optimize and maximize this, go check out the build guide from Maxroll, and then maybe do what I did, adjust it to your own personal play style. Or you can just see what I did and make your own decision. Nonetheless, both options are there for you. So if that's all you're here for, just go ahead, check out the links. Thank you very much. Consider liking, subscribing, all that good stuff. But anyway, let's jump into the game. All right, here we are in the game. So right now I'm going to have some gameplay footage of me running the build. This is a tier 95 nightmare dungeon. All the enemies in here are level 150, which is pretty decent. It's very effective. It kills trash ads so fast. It is, oh my gosh, this is like, I could see this being like a good speed farming build in a group. Like, you got one person running a build that can just insta kill the boss, and then somebody else running this kind of build. I do think that once you start pushing into the higher tiers of the pit, you start getting your 80s, your 90s, your 100s. Even this kind of build will have a hard time with the ads, but just running through 50 to 60, tier 50 to 61, you clear ads really fast. The main problem that happens, and we'll cut to the boss in this dungeon, everything really slows down, and when you're fighting in the pit, you got like those red guys, just like the red effects going on, just trying to hit you with all this stuff while also trying to kill the boss. It can be a little frustrating, but nonetheless the build is a ton of fun. So let's go ahead, let's get into it. So we're gonna go over the gear, then we're gonna go over the skill tree, and then we're gonna go over the Paragon board. As I said in the intro to the video, I do have a planner down below, so if you'd rather just go click on that, you can go check it out. The Paragon board is essentially the same exact one I got from Maxroll. I did have to make some minor adjustments to it to suit my current gear and my build to get, my resistances and all that good stuff. So nonetheless, let's jump into it, starting with the gear. So I don't have everything. Nothing is tier 12. I have a few pieces to tier 8, like right here. Getting the materials can be a little bit tedious. I feel like if I had everything at tier 8, we can comfortably do tier 61 pretty well. and that if I went higher than that, if I got everything to tier 12, we can probably do, you know, between 60 and 70. Especially if you get the right crits, the good min-maxing, but I don't really foresee this build in terms of pit pushing going super far, just because when you're fighting the bosses, it leaves a lot of room for error, and yeah. I've had it happen to me a couple times. So we're going to start off with the helmet. What I went for was fury per second. I also try to grab some resistances to kind of cap out the build. Max life, you could go for strength, you could go for armor. We don't have max armor, but what I do if I'm really like trying to run through things like in the pit, I'll drink one of these elixir of iron barbs, and then that'll put me at max. Now it's kind of lousy having to use your elixir slot for armor, but I found it was the most effective way to cap it out. What I would like to do with these gloves right here is if I can get a crit on the armor right there, or maybe even upgrade these weapons with good strength rolls, we can actually get over that hump, which would require a decent amount of mid-maxing. I will say the main reason why I'm making this build guide, I wanted to put it out there so you guys could see what I've done with it. You know, playing roughly, I've been playing this build. I started the barbarian roughly 6 days ago. I've been playing anywhere between 3 to 4 hours a day, and then like I said, once I hit level 100, I switched everything over. So this is what I've gotten during that time with that amount of playtime. I just kind of wanted to put that out there. So yeah, with the helmet, went with max life. The fury per second, in my opinion, is 100% worth it, especially on barbarian. You know, when you're losing resources, this allows us not to lose fury, and then allows us to maintain it pretty well. And then I went with the resistances just to cap it out. We went with the aspect of numbing wrath. Each point of fury generated while at maximum fury adds to our fortify. Rage of Haragoth. Now, before you start laughing, you might notice that the item power on this particular chest piece is 876. You have every right to laugh at me now. Everybody start laughing. But before we go any further, it was a decently rolled. Now obviously the crit chance sucks, but we got a greater affix damage reduction from bleeding enemies, and then on our lucky hit we got the max 40% roll on chance to reduce the cooldowns of our skills by 1 second. This really allows our shouts and other cooldowns to come back pretty effectively. So I opted to keep this as opposed to using a 925 with a range. The greater affix on damage reduction from bleeding enemies, chef's kiss. If I could ever find a 925 with a greater affix there, I'll take it. If for some reason I come back to this build and I can triple crit that, even better. But for right now, this is getting the job done. Gloves, I went for strength, health, and armor. You got some choices here. Obviously, we get a greater affix on strength. I think that's pretty good. If you feel like you already got enough health, you can maybe get rid of the health, go for a crit chance. The armor roll, in my opinion, is pretty... Like, I will say I am a little disappointed with the strength scaling. It's literally per point of strength you get 1 armor. I was hoping for a little bit more, but I guess I'll take it. So for me, especially if you see my last epoch build guides, I typically go for defense before damage, and I've followed the same mindset here. So strength, health, armor. And with the tempering, I threw on damage to close and then +3 to concussion. With the pants, we do not have a greater affix here. I went for double resistance, really build that up. Now, in the build guide from Max Roll, they call for Tybalt's Will. I personally preferred a regular pair of pants where you can get extra resistance, and then me personally, and we'll cover this when we get into the skill section, I prefer a basic attack just to, if I need to build up fury in a hot second, as well as I really like lunge. It just feels good to me. It allows me to reposition if there's multiple enemies, try and get out the way pretty quickly. I like it a lot, and that allows me to use might. So I hit an enemy with lunge, I get 20% damage reduction for 7 seconds. Now, obviously, in the Maxwell build guide, they have it set up to where you don't need a basic attack. And that's why using Tybalt's Will helps a lot. You get that damage to close and, extra potion slots and all that good stuff. I personally prefer this. This is one of the first areas you're going to see, my personal playstyle kind of come out. I liked the 20% damage reduction after using a basic attack. But if you're somebody who doesn't want to use a basic attack, doesn't want to use a generator, Tybalt's Will here and kind of finagle it a little bit. For the boots, I opted for Fury per Second. Sadly, I found a perfect pair of boots. Greater affix, Fury per Second, movements, just regular movement speed, but it was nearly a max roll, and then a resistance. Oh, man. I wish I could use that, but I failed all the tempering rolls. It's like last epoch, guys. It's like last epoch. You find that really good rolled exalted item with a tier 7 affix, and then something just bricks it for you. You get the wrong affix on there. You maybe go for a rune of removal, and then you remove the tier 7. That's what happened there. It just became so much worse that I couldn't use it. So 3 evade charges, Fury per Second. The evade charges is your personal preference, but the 3 evade charges, I think everybody pretty much agrees, is probably the best one. It allows you for a little bit more repositioning. I'm using lunge, so I don't really use the dodge as much. Plus, last epoch streamer here, we're not used to that. I know. So Fury per Second, movement speed, poison resistance. I needed a resistance. Movement speed, we got the crit on that, and then upheaval overpower. Ignore that. Another last epoch trick. Okay, I got, in this case, 5 affixes. I got 4 out of 5. Oh well, I'll just keep it until I can find something better. Preferably you'd want concussion in this spot. Let's go up over here and then we can go over the weapons. So, Devilish Amulet. So, I guess I should say my mistake. Going back to the boots. The legendary that we're using here. Lucky Hit. Damaging an enemy with a core skill has up to a 28% chance to extend the duration of berserking. Double this duration if it was a critical strike. I will say, as I've played through the game, I've noticed I'll just get berserking, and I think it's because this procs. I think this gives berserking. Don't quote me on that. But it's also really nice after you use something like Warcry, and then you already get berserking, and then this just extends it. So I think it's pretty good. Let's go over to the amulet. For this one, I went for resource. Obviously, 25% elemental, all elements resistance. That's every amulet I've seen. I haven't seen anything different. I have no reason to believe that. Strength, we got a percentage. I think it's nice. Critical strike chance, yes. Damage to close, movement speed. You can finagle this however you want, but I do think damage to close and movement speed are stats you'd be looking for. Critical strike and maximum resource, I think, are also great stats to have. So yeah, there we go. Accelerating loop, obviously resistances any way you need it, any way you can slice it, you can go for it. One for strength, life, critical strike chance. Attack speed would probably be pretty good. You can forego the strength or the maximum life. Again, Mr. Defensive guy over here. So critical strikes are pretty important for the build. So between attack speed, critical strikes, between attack speed and critical strikes, I went for critical strikes. And the reason why is, here's another departure from the max roll guide. They call for, in this slot, they call for the aspect that gives your leap cooldown, so you can use your leap a lot more. I'm already using lunge. I already have a decent amount of mobility. Now, I think the reason why they're going for that is you get a lower cooldown, and it also allows you to build up a lot more fury with leap. We'll get into that when we get over to the skills, which allows you to build up more fortify. See where this is going? Like, I understand it. I even admit that their build is probably better in that regard. I like the way that this feels. So I opted for critical strikes with core skills, increase your attack speed. You see what I did there? Instead of putting attack speed as an affix on my ring, I took a legendary aspect to give myself some more attack speed, right? Going to the next one, Bold Chieftain's Claim Ring. This, we got attack speed. Unfortunately, I couldn't get critical strike on here. I kept trying to roll for critical strike. I couldn't get it, so I ended up taking attack speed. It already had lucky hit on there. I figured lucky hit wasn't a bad thing. We got the Rage of Haragoth. We got the boots. Lucky hit was not necessarily a bad thing, so took it. Oh, I guess I should mention, on both of the rings, Warcry, cooldown reduction, and damage to close. On both of the rings. I opted for strength, and yeah, and on this one with Bold Chieftain's Claim, whenever you cast a shout skill, its cooldown is reduced by 2 seconds. Very nice, especially when you're fighting mobs. Have your shouts already have a lower cooldown to start with. Let Rage of Haragoth cook, and whoo, your cooldowns can come back pretty quick. Especially against multiple enemies. Against one target, not as much, but it is noticeable. It is noticeable. All right, let's get into the weapons here. Obviously, Barbarian, we can have 4 weapons. So, in all of the gem slots, I took critical strike damage. Obviously, you would prefer to have royal gems here. I'm not quite there. I do have a decent amount of gem dust, but since I use the emeralds quite a bit, I'm taking the it's not royals, what are these called, flawless. I'm taking the flawless until I have more than enough gem dust, and I can upgrade them all to royals and not be broke on emeralds, because the emerald dust, you can craft your incense, some elixirs. I don't really know how many elixirs you're probably crafting at this point, because you find so many in nightmare dungeons. Okay, so on the two-handed mace, maximum life, critical strike damage, resource cost reduction. For the way I have the build set up right now, with the fury per second and I guess just the fury per second, the way I have it set up right now, I have not really been running into too many issues. You could probably drop resource cost reduction, but it's not a bad affix to have. I do think maximum life is very important. Critical strike damage, very important. Resource cost reduction, possibly. You can play around with it. I decided to keep it, but you could also opt for a strength roll. Maybe vulnerable damage. I would say, if not resource cost reduction, strength or life, whichever one you're lacking. Damage to close, Dust Devil size. I would prefer to have the chance for Dust Devils to actually be on here, and if I can get a crit on that. That way there's just Dust Devils everywhere, because two-handed weapon, guess what? Affixes are doubled. I prefer to have that. I didn't get it. I did get a max damage to close, though. Wins, right? Okay, Romulandi's Magnum Opus. This has actually been a really nice weapon to use. You have a lucky hit chance. Again, lucky hit chance. I probably don't have enough lucky hit chance to be all like, look at all that lucky hit chance. But again, lucky hit chance to up to a 5% chance to gain some primary resource back. Every little bit helps. What I would probably prefer to have critted on here is the maximum fury, the damage to close, and the damage with dual wield weapons. Whoop, but you know, maximum fury, that it just allows you to spin even longer, Right now, it's not too bad. Obviously, when we're hitting enemies, it goes up, but with all that fury per second on there, you can spin for a while. When you're actually fighting enemies and you're using your shouts and everything, I swear, this doesn't go down that much. And we got a max roll on the skills. Using this weapon deal 0.4% increased damage per point of fury you have. So the more fury you have, again, that's why I would like to have more maximum fury, more damage you do with this. But you lose an extra 2 fury per second. Fury per second gain helps counteract this. For the mace, strength, life, critical strike damage. I prefer damage to close, but I got generic damage. I wasn't going to re-roll it again. I think I ran out of tempers, so whatever. So 25.9% chance for Dust Devils to cast twice. If you can get this on your two-handed mace, the build will definitely see some more DPS. Again, this is the way I had it set up. I played the build for 6 days. This is what we got. And then this is another departure. Here they would prefer you have ground stomp. There's an affix. You're standing. You cast ground stomp. Creates an earthquake or something like that. You stand in it. You get 25% extra damage. Again, I'm not using ground stomp. I'm using lunge. So I was thinking to myself, hey. So more attack speed, more chances to proc Dust Devils, right? But critical strikes with core skills gives us this attack speed. What if we increased our crit chance with Whirlwind? Obviously, you're going to still want base crit chance up for your Dust Devils, but if you could crit with a core skill, you go faster, you generate more Dust Devils, right? And I've tested this. There is a noticeable upgrade. Well, tested. I've looked at this one and that one. I'm like, yeah, it looks like there's more. It feels better too because you're just spinning around faster. It looks cool. So yes, I went with critical strike chance is increased by 8% for each second. It is channeled up to 24%. A nice little extra cherry on top to help you get those crits with your Whirlwind, which sadly is not doing that much damage, but Dust Devils are going everywhere. And then for our sword. Again, it's a sword, critical strike damage as the implicit. Went for strength, life, crit. I think that's probably going to be your best bet for most of the weapons on this build. Strength, life, crit. Dust Devil damage. We got the crit on that. Yeah. And then damage to close. It's a ton of damage. Again, 2 emeralds in there. And then Whirlwind leaves behind Dust Devils that deal 4,812 damage to enemies in their path. Again, the power of this affix is doubled because it's on a two-handed weapon. And did I forget to read this one? Oh, I forgot these 2 affixes. So devilish. After generating 100 fury, your next direct damage creates 2 Dust Devils. Excellent. And then on here, your shout skills create 3 Dust Devils that deal 5,454. Your Dust Devils are 38% bigger and deal 1% increased damage for each 1% their size. Increased damage for each 1% their size is increased. Good. Okay, let's get into the skill tree. Alright, so in the build guide for max roll, you just do point, and then you never use your basic skill again. In this case, I opted for bleeding damage, just to try and get those extra bleeds. Whirlwind, I only put 2 points. We're not really doing damage with Whirlwind. We're using it as a delivery method. So 2 points, 1 point in enhanced Whirlwind, and while using a slashy weapon, Whirlwind also inflicts 40% of its base damage as bleeding damage. That way you're causing bleeds to happen. Bleeds are happening. Rage of Haragoth is cooking. We take nothing else here in this tree. Well, let's actually expand this. That actually looks better. So, imposing presence, gain 18% additional maximum life. Excellent. 3 points there. 1 point in Rallying Cry. We take, obviously, we take Enhanced Rallying Cry and then Tactical Rallying Cry to give us more Fury. You could opt for Strategic Rallying Cry if you need more Fortify. I'm usually a pretty big Fury Goblin. Just when the shouts are going off, you're always topped off. But if you're lacking on Fortify, go for Strategic. Challenging Shout, obviously we take Enhanced Challenging Shout, and then I go for while Challenging Shout is active, you gain 3 Fury each time you take damage. You could also opt for Gain Thorns equal to 30% of your maximum life. I'm opting for more Fury. That's that side of the tree. War Cry, we take Enhanced War Cry, grants you Berserking, and then if there are at least 6 enemies, are nearby when you cast War Cry, your damage bonus is increased by 10%. Every little bit helps, but you could also opt for Fortify if you need more, just to kind of build it up. I took all 3 points in the War Cry passive, so Booming Voice, your shout skills effect durations are increased by 24%. Guttural Yell, your shout skills cause enemies to deal 12% less damage for 5 seconds. And Raid Leader. Also took 3 points in Swiftness, 1 point in Leap, Enhanced Leap, Power Leap. This is where we can generate some extra Fury in a pinch, but if you need to, you could opt for a little bit more crowd control, but I like the, Fury in a bag. Leap, get all that Fury back. 3 points in aggressive resistance. We basically, when we're berserking, we take less damage. It's very nice. When a brawling skill damages at least one enemy, gain berserking. Jump berserking. There you go. And then while berserking, Fury generation is increased by 18%. Excellent. Pit Fighter, you deal 9% increased damage to close enemies and gain 6% distant damage reduction. I love this because, with this style of build, I'm always in close, so if I'm getting shot at people, a little less, it helps. So we don't take any skills here. We do dip into Thick Skin and Counter Offensive. While you have Fortify over 50%, you deal more increased damage, and then just 1 point in Thick Skin to help the Numbing Wrath aspect. All right, let's keep rolling down here. It took 3 points in Wallop. Your skills using bludgeoning weapons deal 15% increased damage if the enemy is stunned or vulnerable. And then Lucky Hit Chance. Again, remember that. Lucky Hit Chance. Skills using bludgeoning weapons have a chance up to 90% to stun enemies for 3 seconds, or up to 135% chance when using a two-handed weapon. So all those points in concussion, when you add them all up, they do help out a lot with crowd control and stunning enemies. 1 point in Tempered Fury, just a touch more Fury. And then we take Unconstrained, increase Berserking's maximum duration by 5 seconds, and increase its damage bonus to 100%. If we were doing damage with Whirlwind, I could see Unbridled Rage being a good pickup, but that's core skills. Remember, we're doing a lot of our damage with Dust Devils, excuse me. I don't know why I just zoned out there. All right, let's finally get to the Paragon board. Paragon? Okay, so I'm not going to go over every single node. I'm just going to focus on the main glyphs. If this is a build that you're really interested in, I would highly encourage you to either check out the macro guide or the build planner that I have in the description down below. That way you can see exactly what needs to be taken. Like I said, my Paragon board is only ever so slightly different than the max rolled guide, simply because I had to tailor it to the gear I had. But for our first glyph, we're going to focus on twisters. This is going to be your primary glyph. So you're going to want to take as many strength nodes as possible. And this first board is perfect for that. So for every 5 strength purchase within range, your Dust Devils deal 39.6% more damage. With the 70 strength that we have purchased in range, that is a 554.4% Dust Devil increase. Then on top of that, you deal 13% increased damage for 4 seconds after creating a Dust Devil. Alright, coming up to the next board, this is the Blood Rage board. We are taking vulnerable damage. When an enemy is damaged by you, they become vulnerable for 3 seconds. This is the exploit glyph. Yeah. This one is called the Twister glyph. I should really be, I call it the Dust Devil glyph. It's actually called Twister. Okay, I'll just stop there for a moment. You can pause the video, you can do whatever you need to do, or you can check out the planner. All right, moving on over to the Warbringer board. We don't actually take Warbringer here. We do pick up many of these nodes in the area, and we are using the Territorial glyph. So this is damage reduction and also increased damage against close enemies for a 49.5% increase to close enemies. I remember that this is, I removed a few points that were giving us some life. I think it was somewhere back here, like right here. I needed the resistance to all. I could go back and look at it, but this is, I just needed to squeeze out just a little bit more resistance, and so that's where I picked it up from here. Territorial, yep, okay. Like I said, this is the Warbringer board. Let me just stop right there. If you wanted to pause the video, you can take a look at it. All right, moving up to the Carnage board. We're going to be taking Ambidextrous. So Ambidextrous is a nice one. Increases our magic nodes in the area up to 125%. So we've taken a lot of magic nodes here. And this is a strength glyph. And when we're using when we're using one-handed weapons, obviously we're dual wielding them, but they're one-handed weapons. You deal 8% increased damage while wielding one-handed weapons. All right, let's go over to, which board is this? The Decimator board. So this is the Undaunted glyph. For every 5 willpower purchased within range. So we got just enough. And this one is damage while fortified, and while we have fortified, we have 10% damage reduction. Let me stop it right there. All right, let me stop it right there. And then for our final board, we took Flawless Technique, damage while berserking, and while berserking you take 10% reduced damage from elites. This is the Ire glyph. That's the Ambidextrous glyph. That's the Undaunted glyph. Let me stop it right there. Okay, that's the Paragon. And last but not least, let's go over class. So when we're using Whirlwind, we're using dual wield. So we're using Romulandi's Magnum Opus and our mace. It's a good idea for it to be a mace. That way we can benefit from concussion. Lunging Strike, I also use the two-handed weapons. And then for Leap, I just left it on Sword. It looks kind of cool, but when you're dealing damage, make sure on your Whirlwind, for your technique, you take the dual wield. And for our expertise, two-handed axe, I think it's the most popular. I've checked out a number of barbarian guides. Almost everybody's taking two-handed axe. That 10% increase vulnerable to enemies. It's pretty nice. And when you're using one-handed swords, You have up to a 10% chance to gain 5 Fury when hitting a crowd-controlled enemy. And then with the mace, and then killing a crowd control enemy grants 15% increased attack speed for 3 seconds. Double this amount if using 2 swords. We're not, so we just get the 1 bonus for using the one-handed sword and then the one-handed mace. Increased damage to stun enemies. You know, with that concussion, we can stun enemies. Bam, we get extra damage to them. Up to a 10% chance to gain berserking for 1.5 seconds when you hit a stunned enemy. Alright, guys. That is the gear. That's the expertise. We covered it last. That is the skill tree. That is the Paragon board. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I hope you guys enjoy this. We're going to be playing Diablo for a little bit more, and then we're going to be getting into Last Epoch. I will be releasing another Last Epoch build guide here pretty soon. It's going to be on the Divine Bolt Paladin. I had planned to go back to Last Epoch a lot sooner, but Diablo 4 has been a lot of fun. So I decided to release the Divine Bolt Paladin guide out sooner rather than later. That way there's still, you know, about a month so you guys can go try it out. So be on the lookout for that. But anyway, thank you so much for watching. Leave a like, possibly subscribe if you like what I do here. I cover a lot of Last Epoch. I will be covering Diablo until it just annoys me. You know, I'm really glad that Diablo is back. So Last Epoch, Diablo, I think I'll be bouncing between those 2 games there. But anyway, thank you so very, very much. Anyway, you guys take care. Cheers.